Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. I've got loads of questions for you today. All these ones, fantastic. I'm looking forward to getting into them. Don't forget, get a t-shirt. Get a t-shirt from the Teespring store. Store. There we go. Look at that one. That one says, Keizoku wa chikara nari. Perseverance is power. Go and get one at the store. Okay, first question. Do you think it's important for a teacher to discuss Kendo theory and history? I understand that during normal practice, it's crucial to focus on the keiko itself. But do you think taking some extra time outside or even during keiko to address these things as well will benefit? Okay, that's that question there. Yeah, it is important for teachers to discuss Kendo theory. It's really important. And that's why I talk about it on the channel quite a lot. I would say I don't talk massively about Kendo history as I'm no expert on it, but there's some fantastic resources to go and look at Kendo history. I think Kendo history is not as important as Kendo theory. Don't go nuts at me on that one. But it is very important. It's very interesting as well. So, you can definitely brush up on that at kench247.net, because that's a great place to do it. And I think Kendo World talk about it as well. Bennett Sensei from Kendo World's got some amazing books on Kendo history and Kendo theory, of course. It is important to do that. But at the same time, instructors can't spend ages explaining that in the dojo. That's why lots of people have the second dojo, or you go out for drinks or something after keiko. That's really beneficial for that sort of thing. But you also have to do it yourself too. You have to study yourself a little bit. So, yeah. Next one. Hi, Andy. What's the deal with going commando under your hakama? Summer in Beijing is like an atomic furnace, 38 to 40 degrees, 70% humidity daily, asking for a friend. So that's a lot like kendo in Kyushu in Japan, actually, which is where I did most of my kendo over there. Going commando under your hakama for men is just the done thing. Like, if you're... That's how you do kendo properly. You're supposed to. It's the traditional way. It's the only right way, and you get better at kendo if you do it. So I recommend it. I can't speak for women because I'm not one. But okay, next one. There's a really important video you've got to watch. Here it goes. Aha, thought you could skip ahead, didn't you? Well, there you go. Shop at KendoStar. Next question. Hi, Andy. Simple question regarding tsuru color. I've heard ever so often that yellow and white tsuru are the only ones allowed, the only allowed colors in official shiai. Is this somewhere written? So the tsuru is, and this is a perfect example. This is one of my daughter's shinai. The tsuru is this string here, and as you can see on my daughter's shinai is pink. It is not white or yellow. I've talked about this in the video that I did. I think it's called 5 Myths about Kendo. It's a myth. It's a total myth. You can use whatever color tsuru you want. There's no rule about what color it has to be, or a rule that says it has to be yellow or white. It's not an unwritten rule. If a rule isn't in this book or the other book, which I don't have to hand, but the other book, which is the subsidiary like guide notes, then it's not a rule. There's no unwritten rules in Kendo. They're all in here. Now, why does that myth exist? It exists because in Japan, it's specific shiai that are administrated by I think it's the Junior High School Sports or Physical Education Federation, not the All Japan Kendo Federation. They do limit it to just white and yellow tsuru, and they also limit the color of the chichikawa. They limit the color of the membuchi, of the tsuba, but not of the do, by the way, just of those things. And also the Kendogyan Hakama. It's not an All Japan Kendo Federation rule. It's not an International Kendo Federation rule. You are free to use a different colour tsuru if you please. Next one. Hello again, Sensei. You don't have to call me Sensei. Thank you for your recent blog post where you were talking about your thought process on the coming year and deciding whether to compete or coach or both. This got me thinking about my own long-term plan and intentions with Kendo. I'm starting later in life, 40 years. At such an age, should I perish the thought of ever winning a competition? Have you ever seen this done before? What other general advice do you have for someone starting Kendo later in life? All the best. So, no, you should definitely not forget about the idea of winning a competition. You will definitely have every chance to do so. Not every tournament. Now, not every tournament is the World Championships. I don't know what country you're in. Realistically, starting Kendo later in life, it would be much harder for you to do some elements of competitive Kendo, like international, representing the national team, that sort of thing. I'd never say it's impossible, but it's going to be a harder achievement than probably for somebody that's starting out a bit earlier. But there's certainly a lot of other stuff in between that. There's lower level tournaments, and often tournaments are separated by rank as well. So I definitely think that you shouldn't throw away the idea of that. I have seen that done before. Just keep doing your best. Just enjoy your practice. But if you do want to have success in competition, train as hard as you can. But also keep yourself healthy as we age. You have to make sure that you keep your body fit and able to deal with the rigors of Kendo as well, without causing injury to yourself. So bear that in mind as you go along. Next one, could you talk about kakegoe? Is it part of kiai or a distinct thing? I get that kakegoe means vocals and is a term that is also used for shamisen players when they shout. Thanks. Subsidiary question, also about kiai. I guess there's no correct answer on this, and that it's kind of personal, but what is it appropriate to shout as a kiai? A fellow kyusha at my dojo yells waza, which sounds kind of goofy as it means technique, but maybe he's right. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. So first I've got to address the idea of the word kiai. For some reason we've managed to take the term kiai and put that as a piece of terminology that means shouting in martial arts. Now, I think that's come across from other martial arts rather than just in Kendo, because I think they use the word kiai for shouting in other martial arts as well. But kiai doesn't mean shouting. Kiai is like your spirit, and kind of showing your spirit, and often that is expressed through a shout. But the word kiai itself doesn't actually mean to shout. The act of shouting is usually used the term hase, and the word hase is two kanji. The first one is to expel or launch, and then the second one is voice, which is koe, yeah. And the koe from kakegoe, the goe from kakegoe is koe, yeah. And kakegoe, so the goe is voice, and that kake is like to apply. So it's applying the voice. So when we go, yeah, before we attack, and there's the answer to the second question, by the way, when you're sort of first facing off, that's essentially referred to as the kakegoe, yeah, because you're applying the voice, yeah, and that is an expression of your kiai, yeah, but the act of shouting isn't actually kiai, and that's where it's a little bit muddy. But yeah, that's basically what it is. I've got no idea about shamisen, okay? I don't know how it applies to shamisen at all. Shamisen, by the way, is a Japanese banjo type instrument. Sorry if you're into shamisen and calling it a banjo is rude. I didn't mean to. I don't know if it is or not. Anyway, the subsidiary question about what you're supposed to shout. Yeah, your fellow kyusha shouting waza is weird. You don't need to shout waza like that. But I guess I've heard people it sounds a bit like that when they say that. Ya is a good one. I think you don't need to think about it too much though. Yeah, don't think about it too much. You don't need to enunciate a specific word like you do when you're striking, when you shout men kote do tsuki. And another side point on this is that when you see the high level players and they hit men and they shout, sometimes it doesn't sound like they're saying men, but they are. Because to non-Japanese, if you don't speak Japanese, and before I spoke Japanese, I thought the same, it really doesn't sound anything like men when they're shouting men or kote or whatever. But actually, as you start to understand Japanese, you can figure out why it sort of sounds a bit like it. So yeah, you do have to shout men, kote, do, and ski. They are saying that at those high level shiai, for the most part at least. Next one, you are now Denshi 6th dan. Where did you get your grades? UK and or Japan. Where will you try to get your 7th dan grade? In Japan. This one might be a bit controversial. Is it more difficult to get a grade in Japan as a foreigner if we compare with all other non-Japanese Kendo federations? That's a really good question. So let's start at the beginning. Yes, I am now Denshi 6th dan. I got my... from my IQ to 4th dan, I got all of those in the UK, and I got my 5th dan in Japan, and I got my 6th dan in France. I am hoping to challenge the 7th dan in Japan. I'd like to challenge it in Japan. I was expecting to challenge 6th dan in Japan actually, but it didn't work out that way. And in terms of is it more difficult to get a grade in Japan as a foreigner compared to other Kendo federations? I think it can go either way. It really depends. There's no doubt that the overall... again, I think as well, actually, before I say that, just to preface it, it probably depends as well on your specific age category. I think if you go sort of over 45, there's probably very little difference. But in the young, if you're sort of younger now, I was what, like 35, I think, when I got my 6th dan. Now, the level of the people trying out for the grade overall in Japan is probably a bit higher at that age range because there's a lot of like young police officers. Now, most of the really elite players are already like testing for Nanadan by that time, but still, having said that, the level at my grading was also very high. So it depends, but there is a higher concentration of very high level players in Japan that doesn't exist in Europe, for example. So in that respect, it could be more difficult. However, at the same time, I think it is, and this is a bit of a controversial point, but I do think that there are times when Japanese grading panels are more lenient on foreign applicants than they are on native Japanese ones. So yeah, it depends. It depends. But at the end of the day, I don't think it matters. I don't think like if you take a grade in Europe or in America or in another country outside of Japan, it's not worth the same as it is in Japan. Because especially like, at least in Europe, and I'm sure it's the same elsewhere, but the grading panel is still, grading you to the same criteria. And the senseis that are grading you get it. So, at the same time, I don't think it's like better. You're a better 6th dan if you got it in Japan than if you got it elsewhere. That's why I was happy to take it in France. I only wanted to take it in Japan because I wanted to take it like in front of my senseis. But that's it really. Next one. Hi, Andy. In a couple of the examples from the Gyakudo compilation, you took us through the Kendoka did Ayumiashi after the cut to make space quickly, safely away from the opponent. Is this just for high school Kendoka, or is it just for Zanshin after door? Is it acceptable for other occasions? Is it okay to use Ayumiashi to easily gain distance for a strike, for example? Thanks. So yeah, so after I did a video talking about Gyakudo the other day. Gyakudo is striking to the opponent's left side, so it's sometimes called Hidari-do. I think it's more correctly called Hidari-do, but everyone says Gyakudo. And yeah, after striking, often they would use Ayumiashi rather than Okuriashi. one of the big misnomers in Kendo is that you're only supposed to use Okuriachi. There's reasons why we use Ayumiashi and there's reasons why we use Okuriachi. In general, Okuriashi is faster than Ayumiashi. However, there's times when it's not. It's certainly more stable than Ayumiashi. However, when you strike Do, so in the Gyakudo example, it's normal to use Ayumiashi to separate from your opponent quickly. Also, it's quite acceptable and probably normal, better even in many cases, to use Ayumiashi when you strike Migido as well. Generally, like if you do like a Men Kaishido or Men Nukido, you don't do Fumikomi, and you don't do with Okuriashi either. You would do with Ayumiashi, just like in kata number 7. That's exactly how you do Men Nukido. But you don't kneel down. You just go through quickly. And actually, sometimes when you strike other points, you can make a step or two of Ayumiashi to help speed yourself up. If you watch a lot of very high-level competitors, you'll find that they make a strike with Fumikomi, and then there's a quick Ayumiashi before they go on to the Okuriashi. Like textbook perfect, it's probably not great. But when done at that sort of high speed really quickly, then it's more than forgivable. Sometimes it's necessary to launch yourself off quickly. Next one, where are KendoStar's uniforms made? It depends on the uniform, but generally in a secret location that if I told you, I'd have to kill you. So next question. Can you do a video showing how you get the men guard into the men? This bit is missed out of your testing videos. I found a knack for doing it with mine, but I know people have broken theirs trying. Also, if you have time, can you do a test to see on average how many times it takes for them to break when being removed and put back in the men, as they should be cleaned after each session? So it would be good to know how long they will last. I'm not sure about doing the test where I do it until it breaks. Because, I'm not sure I've got the time to do that. But, let me get my men and we'll look at how you put it in. Okay, I'm back. Right, so here's my men, my Vanguard Praetor men, and here's my mouth guard that we have. Okay, I assume this is the guard you're talking about because we don't sell the eye ones because they're the ones that I'm worried about breaking and hurting you. So, so I'll try and show you on here. It's a bit, it's not super hard to put them in. They're quite flexible. All right. So you see that bar there, that little notch in it there. That one goes. I'll put that in. I think it goes on the. Yeah, that's right. It goes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes between the 5th bar there. All right. Now once you've done it, it goes in really easy and comes out really easily. To be honest, all you have to do is you just have to push it through the uchiwa. There, you have to push it past there. Like that, and it's easier to just get one of them in first and then it'll push in from the other side and it should just clip in. Now I've got that there wrong, like it's on the higher bar on that side, so I'll just bend it a little bit and drop it down a bar like that. Okay, shouldn't be too difficult. It's pretty straightforward, and it goes straight in that way. Okay, so yeah, I hope that covers it. Next one. Hi Andy, I've been doing lots of Mitori Geiko as instructed. And I've also been watching your detailed video on Yuko Datotu. I'm a bit perplexed by the speed at which some of the decisions are made by being almost immediately after the cut. I'd be the first to acknowledge that Shimpan are far more experienced than I, but how is it possible for someone to have determined Zanshin so quickly? So what this question comes down to is, how do Shimpan award and judge points sort of so quickly before they've actually seen if it fully plays out with Zanshin, right? So the answer to that is when you see that sort of point happen, right? Now remember, they're watching the whole interaction from how the opportunity was created, the interaction between the two Kenshi. Okay, they're watching all of that, and when you see that sort of explosive strike happen in that perfect moment, you can tell when that's at the moment of impact that Zanshin is following. Every now and again, it doesn't, okay? And there is no zanshin. And at that point, it's okay for the shimpan to put the flag back down. And if you do that, or you can wave it off, you can reverse the decision. And if the point's awarded, it happens after the point's actually awarded. They can call Gogi and then decide to revoke the point for lack of zanshin. That happens very occasionally. It's actually quite rare, though, that a person makes such an excellent strike without zanshin. So, yeah. And that's why, as well, that as a kendoka, you have to try to make strikes that fulfill the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, because if you do the first part, the second part follows naturally. And if you're just attacking randomly at the other person, I want to hit men, I want to hit kote, and you're just kind of chopping away randomly, which is what most lower level kendoka do, it's very hard to shimpan, very hard, because whether the strike hits or doesn't hit is totally random, and it's hard to judge as to whether there's going to be zanshin that follows it or not. But when you're shimpanning for skilled kendoka that know how to create opportunities and make strikes that fully fulfill the criteria of Yuko Datotsu, then they make their strikes easy for the shimpan to award. And that's what separates successful competitors and not very successful competitors. Okay, next one. I've noticed that many people actively bend their hedikawa upwards. Is this purely aesthetical, or does it have any other purpose? And you've attached the picture there. Okay, let me grab that men again. So what you're talking about is the corners, the front corners here, how they sort of curl up that way. And you can see on mine actually is doing as well. I don't think people actually really do that on purpose. I think it's a side effect of when you put the men in your bag or something, or when you hold the men. The correct way to hold the men, of course. Now, himo are all over the place, so forgive me for that sec. When you hold the men, you're supposed to hold it like this, yeah? And that will naturally bend the hedikawa that way. So that's why that happens. It's a natural shape that would happen to your men if you're holding it and carrying it correctly. I don't think that that's something that they've worked to shape on it. It's a side effect of how you store and carry the men. Next one. Hi, Andy. I have two for you this week. Okay. The first is there a good way to defend kote? It seems that's where I get hit the most. And the second is what is your favourite Borg set and why? Thank you for all the videos. I really enjoy watching them and keep up the great work. So, defending kote is don't lift your hands. If you're in Chudan no Kamae, you can't be hit on the kote. Even if they try to come around your kamae and strike your kote, even if they hit the kote, it's not ippon because they haven't created an opportunity. However, you can defend the kote by moving your hands this way, okay? And you can block this way as well. This way is more dangerous because they can get around and still hit. But what you mustn't do is you must try, right? Let me get that shinai, okay? From here, you have to try to either block this way or block this way. Okay, but if you lift your hands this way, you're going to lose the kote, definitely. Okay, so the key to not losing the kote strikes is keep your hands down and have faith in your kamae, okay? In terms of my favourite Borg set, KendoStar brand. Really though, out of the KendoStar brand Borg sets, and I really love them all, I think my Vanguard Praetor. I really love the Vanguard Praetor. But I like my Kaise as well. And I like my Vanguard. I can't pick one. You're like asking me to choose between my kids. Can't do that. Okay, next question. How does Dormane made of Orizashi or cow leather compare with those made of Kudozan? So cow/deer leather, sorry. So Orizashi mune, I don't like them. I've seen them in Japan. We don't make them really. We could do, if you wanted one, you could get in touch. But I think the durability is pretty poor of those because it's fabric that's stitched over and then stuck to something hard. It's really easy for them to get torn, and I've seen that a few times. The deer ones, there's no cow leather ones. Kudozan leather is cow leather, by the way. It's just treated in a different way. Kudozan is that sort of shiny black leather that most mune is the chest protector of the door, by the way, are made from. And the other option is either deer leather or synthetic deer leather, like the Shinobu Wraith. And basically, the synthetic deer leather ones, I think they're quite nice. They've got a sort of matte look to them, so they look quite cool. I really like the look of them, actually. They don't have the durability that Kudozan does, but it's not too bad because it's a durable leather that's used, especially the synthetic deer skin ones. So unless you're like properly hammering Keiko and only using that type of door, you probably wouldn't even see the difference in terms of durability. But because it's got a matte finish, it does tend to pick up scratches from the shinai. They're only aesthetic, you know, they don't damage it in a structural way, but it does pick up a few scratches like the door die does, which Kudozan doesn't tend to. Next one. Hi Andy, when do you think we, the world Kendo community, will have another non-Japanese Hachidan? Probably, certainly within the next 5 years, but probably sooner than that, probably within the next 2 to 3. I'd like to see it even sooner. I think that there's a few candidates that are very likely to pass that are not Japanese. So yeah, and as a side point, I think we'll have the first female Hachidan before long too, probably again within the next couple of years, and certainly within the next 4 to 5 years, because I can think of a couple of Japanese female players as well that are definitely up there as strong candidates for it. Next one, having viewed the bewildering array of alternatives for Suburi at home on the KendoStar website and the video, bewildering, it's not so bewildering, I'd like to know, what is your home Suburi weapon of choice? Okay, I'll show you. It's this. It's still got half of the wrapper on because I never peeled it off because I only hold it here. But I like my 3.5 shaku. I've got my name engraved on it. 3.5 shaku Suburi Bokuto or Suburito. I like that. And I've got a 3.9 version as well. I generally use those and a Shinai. I also use a Kiri Bokuto for practicing strikes with Ichibyoshi. Because I've got high ceilings here at the KendoStar office, and that's where I do my Suburi. So yeah, that's my weapon of choice. Recently, I've been trying to improve my Suburi by trying out one-handed Katate Suburi. I find that it really strains my wrist tendons, especially when I'm lifting up the Shinai. It also seems to be easier with my right arm, which I never used to do Suburi with. Is it because of weak muscles on my left arm? Is there any pointers regarding Katate Suburi? How does it differ from normal Suburi in terms of grip and feel? Okay, so thanks, Andy. Love your content. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's because of weak muscles on your left arm. You can strengthen it though. All right. So Katate Suburi, okay, with the left hand is I'm hitting the wall here. You can do with the right hand, but there's not a massive benefit to your kendo. But it's good to balance. You know, you don't want to have a massive left arm and a tiny right arm. You get all sorts of questions. So if you struggle doing it just with the left arm, I haven't got enough space here. If you struggle just doing with the left arm, there's a couple of things you can do. First, I'm doing with a Suburito here, which is obviously quite a lot heavier, but you can do with a Shinai as well. You can hold it a little bit further up the tsuka. That'll make it a little bit easier at first. Okay, that's one thing. Second, if you can get your hands on one of these Suburito, especially the longer one is particularly good for this. Let me grab mine. Okay, so the longer one is particularly good for this. The 3.9 version. What you can do is, I'm not sure if we're on camera here, but you can, from the kamae position, you can lower the tip of the Shinai, the Bokuto, all the way down to Gedan level, okay? And then just practice bringing it back up to Chudan, like that, okay? Now, I'm doing this a bit funny because I'm trying to get on the camera, but just from the Gedan position, just up to Chudan like that. And don't move your elbow. Watch my elbow, yeah? Watch my elbow. Stays where it is, okay? I don't go like this, yeah? Just with my wrist muscles. Just with my wrist muscle. I keep hitting the mic. just with the wrist muscles like that. Okay, you can do that instead of actually swinging the shinai or the bokuto at first, and that'll help you develop the wrist muscles and forearm muscles that you need for that katate suburi. Okay. Next one, and this is the last one. Okay. Hi Andy, I'll hopefully be able to once again study abroad in Japan and finish my university degrees, and will hopefully be able to join a Kendo dojo. My question is, what forms would you use to address people? You briefly mentioned this in a previous video, but I would like it if you would clarify what forms are used for different people. For example, I would assume that you would use keigo for sensei, masu, long form for senpai and students at your rank, and then short form for those who are below your rank. Rank being both in kendo and in life, as is commonplace in Japan. Thank you, Andy. Okay, so what we're talking about here is what kind of Japanese you would use. Now, I'm not a Japanese teacher, okay, so this is not my area of expertise, but I'll answer the question anyway. So I wouldn't worry about keigo for the time being. For the time being, I would use a desmas form to everybody, at least in the beginning, okay? So what that means is Japanese words have lots of different ways to say the same word, and it's different politeness levels. So the desmas form is when you use the word des at the end of a sentence, for example, to mean is or are, or masu instead of just the native nu at the end of the word, to make it a more polite form. Keigo is much more complicated and easy to get wrong. So I don't think the senseis expect you to speak to them in keigo. I didn't usually speak to them in like proper keigo, but there's keigo and there's teinego, which is a bit different. If you just speak to them politely using the desmas form, then you won't have a problem at all. But do that and speak to the senpai and other people, whether they're the same rank or you or below, then using the desmas is perfectly fine. I'd only start worrying about using short form, which is where you drop that. So using words like da instead of des, or aru instead of arimasu. That I'd only consider using that sort of language when you're on very good terms with somebody. So you're very, and not senseis. Even if you're like feeling really friendly with the sensei, then, especially if there's an age gap, then, you still don't want to be like, nomi goes there, like that sort of thing. You don't want to be saying that sort of thing. You want to be using the more polite language. I think that's the best way to not. Though it's not like anyone's going to be like, "What the hell are you saying?" sort of thing. They'll just be like, "Oh, it's okay. You're a foreign guy, doesn't get it, so don't worry too much. Like that's fine." But if you want to kind of fit in a bit more, if you just use that, I think you'll be fine for the majority of situations. Okay. That's it. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. You know what to do. The most important thing is shop at KendoStar. Get it done. You need to. That's what keeps the channel alive. It's amazing. Kendo equipment as well. And I would say that. I know that because I work there. But I don't just work there. I own the place. But you need to shop at KendoStar. And the second most important thing, you've got to ring the Kendo bell. If you haven't rung it yet, what are you doing? Go and ring the bell. You got to click subscribe, and then there's a bell. You have to ring that bell. If you don't do that, you don't get better at Kendo. In fact, you might get worse at Kendo. I don't know. I haven't tried. I rang it straight away. You should do the same. Go and do it. See you next time. Bye.